Like super happy because like it was a tough match. So yeah, there were really tough moments where she was playing well and like.
I think it's only normal that with the loss comes disappointment and being upset. But then again, it's another.
The rise, the fall, and the $45 million lie. Inside Eala's Melbourne Meltdown. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, your #1 source for the rawest, realest, and most explosive tennis news on the planet. If you aren't subscribed yet, you are missing out on the pulse of the tour. Smash that like button right now because what I'm about to tell you is the story that has the entire tennis world buzzing, arguing, and losing their minds on social media. We are coming to you in the aftermath of what can only be described as the most dramatic emotional roller coaster in recent Grand Slam memory. The Australian Open 2026. The stage was set perfectly. The narrative was written in golden ink. The Queen of the East was supposed to ascend her throne in front of a roaring sea of red, blue, and white. Instead, we got a plot twist so shocking, so brutal, so cinematically devastating that even the most cynical Hollywood screenwriter would have rejected it as too unrealistic. We are talking about Eala, the pride of the Philippines, world number 49. The girl who just days ago was lifting trophies and making champions look ordinary. She walked onto court 6 at Melbourne Park, and let me tell you something, that court wasn't just a tennis venue anymore. It was Little Manila. It was a fortress of Filipino pride. It was a carnival of dreams and expectations. For 34 glorious minutes, it looked like a coronation ceremony. She handed American powerhouse Alicia Parks a bagel, a humiliating, confidence-crushing, soul-destroying 6-0 first set. The crowd was absolutely deafening. The Philippine flags were waving like a liberation army had arrived. The internet was breaking under the weight of celebration posts and premature victory declarations. And then, in what felt like a blink, everything changed. The American woke up from her nightmare. The serve clicked into place like a weapon being loaded. The aces started raining down like missiles from a bomber squadron. In 1 hour and 56 minutes total, the dream debut metamorphosed into a nightmare exit that will haunt highlight reels for years. 0-6, 6-3, 6-2. Alicia Parks advances to the second round. Eala packs her bags for the singles draw, at least. But here is where this story gets absolutely wild, and why you need to pay close attention. While the tears were still drying in the locker room, while the Filipino fans were filing out of court 6 in stunned silence, another story was setting the internet forums, Reddit threads, and TikTok feeds absolutely on fire. You've seen the headlines. You've watched the viral videos. The rumor that Eala, our sweet, humble, hardworking superstar, rejected a multi-million-dollar contract from a major international brand just days before the Australian Open. Some sources claim it was $45 million. Some say she turned it down to focus on her charity work and maintain her pure image. Others are calling it the greatest public relations stunt of the decade, a carefully orchestrated piece of myth-making designed to elevate her brand to sainthood status. Today, we are peeling back every single layer of this onion. We are going to break down every agonizing, heart-wrenching point of that Australian Open first-round thriller. We're going to take you inside the electric, almost overwhelming atmosphere of Little Manila and what it's like to carry the hopes of millions on 20-year-old shoulders. And we are finally, definitively going to expose the truth behind the so-called secret contract rumor. Is Eala genuinely the most principled, incorruptible athlete in modern sports? Or is her management team playing four-dimensional chess with the media and her fan base? Buckle up, tennis fans, because this is the deep dive you've been waiting for, and it's going to get intense. Before we can truly understand the crushing weight of the Melbourne loss, we have to understand the stratospheric height of the expectations. You cannot comprehend the depth of the pain without first appreciating how high the hopes had climbed. Just days before the Australian Open main draw began, Eala was undeniably the hottest unseeded player on the grounds. She wasn't just hitting practice balls and doing media obligations. She was winning actual silverware against top-tier competition. We're talking about the Kuyong Classic, and before you dismiss it as just another exhibition tournament, let me stop you right there. Tell that dismissive attitude to Donna Vekic, Olympic silver medalist, seasoned veteran, and legitimate powerhouse. Eala didn't just beat Vekic in some charity match where nobody was trying. She beat her twice in a span of 2 weeks, and these were competitive, high-quality victories. First came the ASB Classic in Auckland, where Eala announced her presence. Then came Kuyong, where she absolutely dominated. At Kuyong, Eala was playing in what can only be described as God mode. She swept Vekic 6-3, 6-4 to win the prestigious Yvonne Goolagong Collie Trophy. Do you understand the cultural and historical significance of that moment? Yvonne Goolagong is absolute royalty in Australian tennis. She's an icon, a legend, a name that carries weight. For a 20-year-old Filipina to lift that trophy, wearing that brilliant smile, having just dismantled a top 20 caliber player like Vekic, it sent a message that reverberated through the locker rooms and press rooms of Melbourne Park. The media went absolutely wild. Gulf News ran headlines calling her hot in Melbourne. Panay News declared she had delivered a statement victory that established her as a legitimate threat. She wasn't just a prospect anymore. She wasn't just a talented youngster with potential. She was a contender. She had crashed into the top 50 rankings. She was walking around Melbourne Park with a swagger and confidence we had never seen from her before. The Kuyong Classic victory accomplished 2 critically important things. First, it convinced the massive Filipino fan base, both in Australia and around the world, that this was the year. This was the moment when she wouldn't just participate in a Grand Slam. She would go deep, maybe even shock the world. Second, and perhaps more dangerously, it painted a massive target on her back. When she walked out of Kuyong carrying that trophy, she wasn't little Alex anymore, the underdog everyone loved to cheer for. She was a genuine threat. She was someone opponents would prepare for, game plan against, and take seriously. Waiting for her in the first round of the Australian Open was Alicia Parks, a player with a serve that can genuinely knock the racket out of your hands, but also a player who had been struggling with consistency, someone who could look like a champion one week and completely lost the next. On paper, based purely on recent form and momentum, Eala was actually the favorite. The form was there, validated by quality wins. The confidence was sky-high. The stars seemed to be aligning for something special. Monday, January 19, 2026. Melbourne Park. Court 6. If you weren't physically present in that stadium, you simply cannot imagine the atmosphere, the energy, the sheer noise. Court 6 is one of the more intimate show courts at Melbourne Park. It doesn't have the cavernous, separated feeling of Rod Laver Arena where the fans are distant. On Court 6, the spectators are right on top of you, close enough that you can hear individual voices, feel their energy radiating down onto the playing surface. And the Filipino community in Melbourne? They showed up in force. Reports from people who were there say the queue to get into Court 6 stretched all the way back to Rod Laver Arena. We're talking thousands of fans, draped in red, blue, and white, the colors of the Philippine flag. They weren't just sitting politely in their seats. They were vibrating with anticipation and nervous energy. When Alex walked out onto that court, the roar was reportedly audible on neighboring courts. Players practicing on adjacent courts stopped and looked around, wondering what major champion had just walked out. It was a hero's welcome. It was little Manila coming to life, transforming a Melbourne tennis court into a slice of the Philippines. And Alex? She fed off that energy like a champion. The match started, and what happened next was nothing short of a demolition. The first game alone was an epic marathon, 20 points, 8 break points, a war of attrition. But once Eala finally broke Park's serve in that opening game, the floodgates didn't just open, they exploded off their hinges. Eala was painting the lines with precision that seemed computer-guided. Her lefty forehand was finding angles that simply should not exist in three-dimensional space. She was moving Parks from side to side like a puppeteer controlling strings, exposing the American's movement issues, making a professional athlete look clumsy and out of sorts. 34 minutes. That's all it took. 6-0. A bagel. In a Grand Slam main draw. Against a player with a genuinely dangerous serve. At this point, the group chats back in the Philippines were melting down servers. Messages were flying. She's going to win the whole tournament. Parks can't handle the pressure or the heat. The chants of "Let's go, Alex" were so thunderously loud that the chair umpire actually had to ask the crowd to quiet down multiple times, a rare intervention that only happens when noise is genuinely affecting play. Alicia Parks looked completely lost, like someone who had wandered onto the court by accident. She had zero answers to any question Eala was asking. She wasn't just losing, she was being systematically dismantled, broken down piece by piece. She couldn't find a first serve to save her life. She was spraying errors to every corner of the court. To any casual observer watching, the match was effectively over. Eala was already mentally in the second round, probably thinking about her upcoming match against Karolina Machova. But here is the brutal truth about tennis. And here is the thing about the tabloid drama of sports that makes it so addictive and unpredictable. It's never, ever over until that final handshake at the net. What happened between the first and second sets is a masterclass in sports psychology and mental resilience. Alicia Parks took a moment. She went to the bathroom. She splashed water on her face. She looked herself in the mirror. She reset her entire mental approach. She later told the press in her post-match interview, "It was very difficult. I was expecting the crowd to be against me, but I also wasn't fully prepared for just how intense it would be. I just kept telling myself to stay in the zone, to focus only on my game." Parks had a crucial realization during that break. She couldn't out-rally Eala. If she stayed in long, grinding baseline exchanges, the crowd would eat her alive with every point Eala won, and Eala's consistency and court coverage would grind her into dust. She needed a different strategy. She needed to take the racket out of Eala's hands. She needed to pull the trigger aggressively and end points quickly, for better or worse. The second set started, and you could feel the atmosphere shift like a weather front moving in. Parks came out swinging, not carefully or conservatively, but with reckless, aggressive intent. And incredibly, it started to work. Bang, face down the field. Bang, service winner out. Bang, inside out forehand. Suddenly, that seemingly insurmountable 6-0 first set lead felt like ancient days. Parks reeled off 3 straight games to jump ahead 3-0 in the second set. The crowd, so deafening moments before, went eerily quiet. A nervous, anxious hush fell over Little Manila like a dark cloud. To her enormous credit, Eala showed the fighting spirit and grit that has made her such a beloved figure. She battled back. She clawed her way to 3-3, evening the second set. The crowd reignited like someone had thrown gasoline. They fought, they hoped, they prayed. Okay, that was just a temporary blip, a momentary lapse. Alex has got this under control now. But Alicia Parks had found her rhythm, and more importantly, she had found her confidence. She finished the match with 12 aces total. Let me tell you something about what that feels like from the receiving end. You work your absolute tail off to win a grueling point, scrambling, defending, fighting for every inch of court. Then the very next point, you watch a yellow blur fly past you at 190 kilometers per hour before you can even react, and all that hard work is instantly neutralized. It's demoralizing. It's mentally exhausting. Parks broke serve again to go up 5-3. She served out the set with authority. 6-3. 1 set all. Suddenly, we had a genuine dogfight on our hands. The third and deciding set was where the Little Manila advantage might have actually transformed into a curse, a burden too heavy to carry. Eala admitted later in her press conference, and you could hear the exhaustion and emotion in her voice. It was a bit overwhelming. She described how even during practice sessions, she was being mobbed by fans. She needed 12 security guards just to safely leave the practice courts. 12 security guards for a 20-year-old tennis player. That is a level of fame, adulation, and pressure that is extraordinarily difficult for someone so young to carry, especially when things start going wrong on the court and you're desperately trying to figure out how to stop the bleeding. In the deciding set, Parks was an absolute machine, clinical and ruthless. She broke Eala's serve early to lead 2-0, and you could see the panic starting to creep into Eala's body language. Eala was trying everything to pump herself up, looking desperately at her coaching box, looking at the fans, trying to draw energy from somewhere, anywhere. But Parks was locked in now. The American zone was completely impenetrable, a fortress of focus. Eala held serve to make it 2-3, and the crowd tried one last desperate, valiant attempt to lift their champion. They screamed until their voices were raw. They stomped their feet until the stands shook. But Parks just calmly stepped up to the baseline and fired another completely unreturnable serve, as if the noise didn't exist. At 5-2, Parks serving for the match. This is where champions are supposed to choke, right? This is where the pressure is supposed to get to them. Eala saved 2 match points with pure heart and refusal to surrender. The crowd was on its feet, standing, begging, pleading for a miracle, for divine intervention. But on the 3rd match point, Parks hit a blazing, uncompromising forehand. Eala could only offer a weak defensive reply. The ball landed out. Game, set, match. 0-6, 6-3, 6-2. The comeback was complete. The silence was instant and devastating. The flags lowered slowly. It was stunned disbelief, the kind you see in sports movies but never think you'll witness in real life. How do you win the first set 6-0 and lose the match? How does that happen? Alicia Parks, who had been cast as the villain in this Filipino fairy tale, was gracious in victory but also brutally honest. She laughed slightly when asked about playing in hostile environments and said, "I don't know what my record is with crowds against me, but it definitely puts a fire in me. It makes me want to prove people wrong." She had used the crowd's energy against them like a judo expert redirecting force. She had silenced the roar. Now, let's pivot dramatically to the story that has been happening simultaneously off the court, a story that might actually explain some of the immense pressure that was crushing down on Eala's shoulders. If you've been on social media at all in the past week, you have absolutely seen the posts. The headlines scream, Eala rejects $45 million from Wilson. Eala turns down Saudi money to stay pure. Eala says no to multi-million-dollar brand deal to focus on tennis and charity. The rumor mill, that insatiable beast that feeds on speculation and half-truths, suggests that a major sporting goods company, most often cited as Wilson but sometimes other brands, offered Eala a lifetime endorsement contract worth tens of millions of dollars. And here's the kicker. She supposedly turned it down, rejected it outright. The reasons given vary depending on which version of the story you read. Some say she didn't want the distraction during a crucial development phase of her career. Some claim she wanted to donate the money to charity and didn't feel right taking it. Others suggest she wanted to stay loyal to her current sponsors who believed in her before she was famous. It sounds like a Hollywood movie script, doesn't it? The pure, incorruptible athlete who values principles over profit, who turns down generational wealth to stay true to herself. But here at Champions Tennisitics, we don't deal in fairy tales. We value truth, evidence, and facts. So the question we have to answer is simple. Is this true? Did this actually happen? The verdict, after extensive investigation and fact-checking. It's mostly fake news, tabloid fiction designed to generate clicks and reinforce a narrative people desperately want to believe. Let's look at the actual facts, the verifiable information we can confirm. There is absolutely no record, no documentation, no credible source confirming a $45 million offer from Wilson or any other major brand. Wilson, when contacted by fact-checkers, has not confirmed any such offer. Eala's management team has not confirmed it. Her family has not confirmed it. In fact, Eala is currently under existing contracts with Babolat for her rackets and Nike for her apparel and footwear. She has long-standing, publicly documented relationships with Globe Telecom and Bank of the Philippine Islands, both major Filipino brands that have supported her for years. Where do you stand? And what do you make of this secret contract rumor that won't die? Do you think athletes should reject big money to focus purely on their craft? Or should they secure the financial bag while they can and worry about performance separately? These are fascinating questions with no easy answers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I read every single comment, and I love hearing different perspectives. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the drama, the heartbreak, and the truth behind the headlines, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel grow and reach more tennis fans who crave this kind of in-depth analysis. Subscribe if you haven't already, and absolutely turn on that notification bell so you never miss a breaking story or exclusive investigation. Until next time, keep your eye on the ball, keep questioning the narratives, and keep supporting these incredible athletes who put everything on the line for our entertainment. This is Champions Tennisitics, signing off.
That with the law. Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin at
I think both of us are doing actually pretty well, so I know everyone else wants to see like the matchup. But I think it's pretty good to...
Sparks, 2 sets to 1, lap 6, 6 straight, 6, 2.